My name is Evelyn Martinez Ostrom. I work at Washington State University in Tri-Cities. A couple of Tri-Cities peeps in the room. Woohoo! I love it, love it. 4 weeks ago, I worked in Pullman, so familiar faces kind of all the way around. Really excited to be back. Love this conference, love being here with everybody. I'm the Assistant Director in Student Life at WC Tri-Cities. And today I'm going to be giving a presentation about sharing your story, talking a little bit about your organizational objectives. So show of hands, how many of you are here as like an officer of a club or an organization? Okay, I think maybe most people. How many of you are here because you just kind of thought the topic was interesting, but you're not in a club or an organization? Okay, so just kind of a fair warning before I start. I want everybody who's in here to kind of know, fair warning, this is really kind of organization based in terms of thinking about what are the goals and objectives that your club or organization might have for programs and activities that you might put on for the students that you all program for and things like that. So that's kind of really where the focus of this is going to be. But I also think there's a lot of great lessons to be learned for those of you who are maybe not here with an organization, but you're kind of just interested in the topic. And then we will have an activity at some point through this. I don't have enough copies for everybody here, but they are bringing more. So hopefully by that time we'll get there. So the topic of this presentation is the ability to share your story and the power of objectives. Can anybody tell me, never mind, I put the description up there for you, what an objective is, right? So an objective is a thing aimed at or sought or a goal, right? So it's something that you're always kind of working towards accomplishing. So we're going to talk a lot about objectives today. We're going to talk a little bit about goals today. We're going to talk a little bit about assessment today, which I know isn't the most exciting thing, but I think once you really start thinking about the big picture of what we're getting at, you might be pretty interested. So the whole point of this is really to think not only about what your organization is, right, for those of you that are involved in a club, but really start thinking about what your organization should be. What do you want your organization to be? And how can you kind of work towards making it what you want it to be? So one of the quotes that I really like that kind of is why I'm passionate about this subject is that goal statements must be translated into objectives. Otherwise, they just remain good intentions, which never actually become achievements. Have you ever thought about that, where you're like, I have a goal, maybe a New Year's resolution of being more organized, but you never really told yourself, how am I going to be more organized, right? So if you're just like, I'm going to be more organized, woo, let's move forward with that. And then a week later, you're like, well, nothing's really changed. Nothing really has happened. Well, maybe have you actually implemented a plan to intentionally start being more organized? And so that's kind of what you can start thinking about for your organization. What are some ways that you can start working towards some of your club's goals to actually make this happen? So hopefully in this workshop, you're going to learn a little bit about sharing your organization's successes, right? Because hopefully when you are doing your program planning, for your organization, you will be able to then share out what were some really good things that happened as a result. Or maybe internally you can say, what were some things that we could do better next time, right? So those are some things you need to think about. Show of hands, how many of you have ever directly kind of coordinated or planned or organized a program for your org? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, perfect. So this is for you, y'all. Okay. So I always like to start my presentations by showing some organizations that I have worked with, some new ones that I'm currently working with, some old ones, some familiar faces you might see in here, maybe not. Maybe some of these are a little old. But one of the things that I like to show this for is to really get you all to start thinking, why are you involved in your organization? So almost everybody here is a part of a club, so I want to hear from some of you. What is a reason why you're involved with your org, if you'd like to share? I didn't bring candy or anything to like reward you for sharing, but Dylan, why are you involved in your organization?
Because it's a community that really enjoys being around.
Likes being around the community. Cool. Yeah.
I was looking to get involved.
Okay. So kind of broadly, just wanted to get involved. Other reasons for why you joined your club? Emma?
I mean, not the only reason, but it looks good on a resume if you're in club officer.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think most of us can probably kind of admit to that one. Yeah.
Develop leadership skills.
Yes, love that.
Give me a chance to network with people I wouldn't usually have the chance to.
I love that. Great. Cool, thank you. Those are all some really great reasons why you joined your organizations. Can you see how you might spin those reasons into some objectives that you might have for program planning in the future? So we heard a little bit about being involved in the community, right? So what is a program or an activity that your club or organization can do to accomplish that goal? Maybe very broadly, you just want some more involvement experience. What is something that your club or organization can do to give more involvement opportunities to students? And some of those other various things, I have a terrible memory, but things that we just heard are things that you can translate into programs to actually accomplish those goals, to ensure that students that are joining your clubs or organizations are actually getting what they want out of your club versus, all we do is pizza parties and it's just kind of for, for fun or to hang out. That's not an unimportant goal, but that's probably not all that your organization should be doing if you're trying to network, if you're trying to build your leadership skills, right? You want to try doing some different things that meet those goals. So all of these people look very happy to be in their clubs. I'm sure there are various different reasons why they joined these organizations, the types of activities that they do for cultural awareness, for academic-based learning, leadership development, things like that. Did bring the water, yay. Okay, so kind of going back to that same question, why are you doing this? Why are you in your organization? It's important to really think, why does your org exist? Okay, so if you are part of the Associated Students of WSU or whatever campus you might be coming from, your organization has a pretty set goal of advocating for the student body, right? However, if you are the Hammock Club, that's not really like a club that has to exist on campus, but if it does, why does that organization exist? To help students relieve stress between class, to give people a place to kind of hang out between classes, like what is that club really for? So I encourage you all to kind of start thinking about your club and thinking about why does your organization exist to begin with, just really broadly. The next thing that I want you to do is think about your goals. So what is it that your club hopes to accomplish, which kind of stems from your club's purpose? So is it to develop leadership skills or give people leadership development opportunities? Is it to have this sense of community that you maybe wouldn't have elsewhere within your academics? And then finally, the most important part of this presentation is about objectives. So really thinking about strategies or implementation steps to attain those goals. So how can you ensure that you are actually providing those experiences or opportunities for people that are coming to your org's programs or events? Okay, are there any questions so far? Just want to feel the rooms. Everybody still with me? Everybody following along? Cool. All right, so a couple of things. Oh, well, it didn't look like this when I did it on my computer, sorry. Hopefully you could still read it. So a couple of things I want to talk about is what the difference between a program outcome and a learning outcome or objectives. And I should have started with, I use outcomes and objectives kind of interchangeably, but I do think there is a pretty clear difference between an objective and an outcome. Can anybody take a stab at what that might be? We've already talked a little bit about objectives, yeah.
An objective would be like what you predict the future will be, what you hope it'll be, and an outcome is what it actually will be.
Bingo. That's exactly what I think too. So I don't always like to say outcomes because that means this is what actually happened. This is what actually came of this program based on like data and assessment. People said, yes, they got leadership development from this. An objective is more so your goal towards obtaining that outcome. So your objective might be very different from your outcome, but the goal is that they actually do align, right? People did get what you sought for them to get from your program. Does that make sense? So if I use them interchangeably, I apologize, but there is kind of a difference. So for program objectives, really thinking about what your program is to do, achieve, or accomplish in support of your org's goals. This is really broad. You can really think that your program in general is to advocate for the student body. Like, what does that even mean, right? Somebody's going to challenge you on that one day, like, how are you going to advocate for the student body? And you're like, whoa, I wasn't prepared for a follow-up question, right? You really need to come with those answers of, okay, well, these are some challenges that I see. These are some things that I want to work on. So I'm going to create some programs or some learning objectives that will accomplish these different types of challenges that I want to fix. So you're not simply advocating for the students. You are providing more access to resources, or you are doing X, Y, and Z. We're going to talk a lot more about developing objectives here in a bit. First is a learning objective, which really is a statement that indicates what you hope a participant will know, think, or be able to do as a result of your event, activity, program, or simply by being a member of your club, okay? So maybe your club really does exist just so people can like have fun and have a place to go and participate in esports on the weekends or something like that. And if they're getting that, you're achieving your goal, right? You're doing what you set out to do. If your program objective is to have people just feel that sense of community and you're providing that opportunity, then you're meeting your goal. But if you want to dive a little bit deeper into some learning objectives that you might want more kind of deeper involvement into, like leadership skills is one that we heard. And that's probably why you all are at this conference too, to really develop those skills. You'll need to think a little bit deeper about how are we actually providing that experience to people who are coming to our program. So one of my favorite things to teach is how to create learning objectives. And there's a really simple model to follow. And I have a worksheet. I think I'm going to pass it out right now, actually. Or we'll kind of do a send it around the room type of thing. I'll grab the ones in the back, too. There you go. Maybe we'll do a little send it around, see where we get. Here you go. You want to just take one and pass it down? Okay, so while you all are getting those handouts, I've got a copy up here too so I can kind of follow along with everybody. The ABCDs of learning outcomes, learning objectives, whatever, potato, potato, first starts with the A, and that is going to be the audience, okay? So really think about the who, what, when, where, and why when you're program planning. So your audience, who is it that you want this objective to pertain to? Okay, so you always have to have like, oh, all of you are students in some capacity at some college, right? So you would be my audience. I want you, students from wherever you come from. Show of hands if you're not from WSU. She's from Utah. Just kidding, she really is though. Okay, so everybody's WSU. So I can kind of broadly say, except for her, that WSU students are the audience in this kind of scenario, okay? Next thing that you need to think about, what do you expect your audience to know or be able to do? So this really needs to include an action verb of some type to describe the learning. Maybe very generally, I just want you all to understand what a learning objective is, right? And that's a pretty easy thing to do. Like you can memorize, that's even another thing that you could do. You can memorize a definition from a dictionary, right? But maybe you don't really know, you don't understand it, or you can't really apply that definition to something. So I'm going to talk a little bit about more of these verbs that you can use for behavior. But behavior. The third is condition. So under what conditions or circumstances will the learning occur? As a result of coming to my training today, I hope that you all will understand a little bit about learning objectives. So you're kind of seeing this pattern here. A lot of times the C actually comes after the A. So once we start forming these sentences, you'll see that kind of come to life. And then finally, the degree, which isn't all showing, how will the behavior need to be performed? How much will be accomplished and to what level? And you have this all in your worksheet here. So to what level? So the degree part tends to be the most complicated part of this whole process. Does anybody know why that might be? Anybody have an idea? So let's try to start from the top really quick. I hope that you, WSU students, will be able to understand a little bit about learning objectives as a result of coming to this training workshop, degree is missing. Can you tell me why that might be hard for me, Emma?
Because it's a specific quantification, it's like in operationalization, and so
Yeah.
you kind of have, it generally is hard for people to operationalize things. They
Absolutely.
describe constructs with other constructs.
Yes. So in a non-psychological term, Emma's a psych student, it's hard to be able to quantify or put into, like, how do I know if you all actually understand what I'm talking about, right? Well, it's hard for me to know that. I hope that I'm just explaining it to you well enough, but I'd have to actually evaluate or assess your understanding of this to really know whether I accomplished what I'm setting out to do. And this is really hard for some organizations to follow through with, but this is arguably the most important part of the process. Does anybody know why this is the most important part? Mm-hmm.
That's how you know that what you're doing is actually working.
Yeah. And why else would you be doing it if it's not actually working, you know? And even if it's the most simple thing of, I just want somebody to feel like they have a place to come and play video games. And if somebody's like, yeah, man, otherwise I would have just been sitting in my dorm all night, my res hall, all night. Like, cool, then I did what I accomplished to do. But you won't know that until you actually ask people whether they accomplished or they learned or they understood or whatever it might be. So that's the really most important part of this whole thing. It's also the most boring part of this whole thing, and it's the reason why a lot of clubs don't bother assessing or evaluating. So most of you know about CougSync. A couple of you have swiped in today for Greek programming, and I want you all to know we at WSU have a tool that will help you to take attendance at your events and programs, and then be able to follow up and ask people, hey, what'd you think? What could we do better next time? Did you learn this thing that I wanted you to learn, right? It's the most simple thing, but a lot of clubs just kind of have the event and they're like, yeah, we did it. It's over. On to the next thing. Well, how can we make it better the next time, right? You should really be asking yourself that question. Otherwise, it might not be worth doing it again. That's kind of harsh, but like, that's the reality. Okay, so I've got some examples here that I want to go through, and I love these examples. You guys are going to think I'm nerdy. My sister might like it. So let's talk a little bit about audience. So I already mentioned this first one, WSU students. That's all of you. It could be psychology club members, right? It could be Hammock Club participants, so people who actually go to Hammock Club events. It could be Pokemon Go players, right, if you're kind of into that. Or Shark Conservation Club officers. You can have an audience that is as broad or as really specific as whatever your program is setting out to do, okay? So the behavior. Dang it, I hate that this doesn't fit. Behaviors might look a little bit like should be able to find community, will connect with professional networks, can experience relaxation and happiness, would travel between reality and virtuality, I think I made that word up, or may develop awareness of population decline, okay? So these might follow the audience. Condition. I'm already lost on like where I started, but I'll put it all together at the end. Who get involved in clubs or organizations, so that's pretty broad. That attend the career night event, who hammock for 2 hours a week, that battle at the gym on Saturday. Is that how you do it? I don't know how to Pokemon Go. Or that participate in the stream cleanup, okay? And finally, the degree. So this is a degree to which I hope this happens. Yes. That aligns with their interests and major, to secure internships for this summer, to decrease their stress levels, to catch them all, or to increase awareness amongst students, okay? So that's kind of broadly a learning objective for each of these different kind of groups. One of the things that I want to talk a little bit deeper on before I put it all back together is that behavior piece, right? So a lot of the behaviors that I put in here, find community, connect, experience, travel, develop. You notice that those are all like action items there, action words. So what I want to talk about a little bit is the level at which you want these students to be able to understand or create based on the program that you're doing, okay? So what I'm doing for you all here today, I'm hoping that you'll at least be able to understand why this is important and why you might want to start doing this for your organization. But maybe I want you to go a little bit deeper into being able to analyze your events as a result of thinking, like, this is really important. I'm to go back to my previous events and see what we could have done better, what feedback we maybe got, and so on and so forth. Okay? Or you might even go to the very top level and say, you know, we're going, Coding Cougs is going to this hackathon, and we're hoping that all of the people that are coming with us on this trip will be able to create an application or a project or whatever that will change the face of applications or technology, right? I don't really speak that language either. But really just thinking about what level of acting do you want people to be able to do as a result of going to your program. Does that make sense? It's kind of hard to explain because, I don't know, this is some kind of complicated stuff. So here are some words that are also, I think, in your worksheet that I've given you that you can use to help you create your own learning objectives. So I've got this whole Bloom's taxonomy of learning in your worksheet. And I want for our, well, actually, let's tie these examples back to it, and then we're going to work on this a little bit. So what I want us to do is be able to put together these learning objectives that I had kind of created just to give you some examples. So WSU students who get involved in clubs or organizations should find community that aligns with their interests and major. Who's the audience? WSU students. Okay, what's the behavior? Find community. What is the condition? Okay, and then the degree. It's a little bit harder to actually like say that this is, yeah, I evaluated this and this is kind of, this is what we learned. But it is that align with their interests and major. So you can ask people like, hey, you joined some clubs, did it align with your interest and major? And they're like, no, like Pokemon Club does not go with my major. And you're like, okay, I need to do better. I need to invite some more academic-based clubs, right? So psychology club members that attend the career night event will connect with professional networks to secure internships for this summer. So we've got psychology club members. The condition is attending the career night event. The behavior is connecting with professional networks. And the degree is that they will have secured internships for this summer. What happens if they didn't secure any internships? What would you do as somebody who planned that event? I'd cry, yeah. I would do something different next time, right? What is the reason why they didn't secure internships? We need to figure that out so that we can do better next time. Hammock Club, Pokemon Go, I mean, I made that up myself. I was really proud of it. Shark Club officers that participate in the stream cleanup, develop awareness of shark population decline to increase awareness among students. So these are just really kind of broad, basic. They're not really deep levels of understanding these things, but they kind of, you know, fit the bill. So the next thing that I want us to do is kind of put this into a little bit of a think, pair, share. So you can either partner with the person next to you, or if you're here with somebody else from your organization, this could be a really great opportunity for you to start thinking about your next upcoming program or activity or event and actually putting a learning objective on it. So I think on page 3, we really walk you through identifying the overarching objective or outcome that your event is going to support, identifying your audience, what you want them to know or be able to do, what circumstances is it, so what is your event, right? To what degree will the learning occur? And if you need help with that one, I'm going to be floating around. And how will you measure that they actually learned it? Because this is a really important piece. And then you can kind of fill in the blanks and put it all together. So just to kind of start you up, if you have an event coming up, a program, an activity, if you're tabling next week, that is something that you can create learning objectives for. Why are we tabling? Why are we wasting 4 hours of our time to stand out here? Are we trying to teach something? Are we trying to give information? Are we trying to get people to sign up for our club? Those are all really great objectives. So kind of pair up with the person next to you or somebody else from your org. Think about your upcoming program or event and start working on that third page. And I'm going to kind of bop around. Let's do this for about 5 to 7 minutes and see where we get. And then I'm going to ask for some examples too. So come up with some good ones.
I
Wow.
What program or what club or you're all working leaders? Cool, cool. What kind of programs do you think you might be planning? Are you all first year? Transfer? So what we recommended down there is if you go into Crimson View, programming for emerging leaders and programs, so what types of programs do you want? I know it's not really but what programs do you think are beneficial for emerging leaders?
I just wrote down my answer. Yeah, so. Yeah, it's like a yes or no, so that's quantifiable. Not all the time, but like a good portion of them, we ran out of small and
No, because like, no, English is very like so having to attack your talent, whereas in Spanish, some words
So did anybody come up with kind of a learning objective that you'd like to share with the class? I feel like such a teacher up here. Okay, go ahead.
WSU students in attendance will learn how to confidently support someone giving birth using non-pharmaceutical comfort techniques through hands-on practice. Learning will be measured by return demonstration and participant reporting of their biggest takeaway.
Oh, I like that. I like that extra, how am I going to find out if somebody actually learned this? That's good. That's extra. I like it. Others? I heard some really great things out there, yep.
One that we kind of talked with is as like part of the ambassador group for CCD.
Yeah.
Is, last year we tried to help with the senior night for graduates and like help get them more interactive and stuff to stay a little longer and also provide some entertainment.
Yeah.
But instead for this year, we're thinking maybe we could try to do something more with that to where we have mentors that are already within companies and organizations outside that graduated and were ambassadors prior. So if we get them involved and get them contacted with like their HR of their companies and stuff, we get the HR representatives or at least the contact info and stuff. So that way graduates that are coming there that don't have jobs before post-graduation, they can then have kind of that intro to where they can get in contact with the different companies and
Yeah.
able to have that so that way they're leaving with something
Yeah.
that they need to work on.
Yeah, I like that. Even if the learning or the engagement or whatever you really intend doesn't happen at the event, is there something you can send away with them, a tool, a resource? I'm hoping that the little handout I gave you is something that you can type up and kind of use separately for other programs that you do, but being able to walk away at least with a tool or a resource, that's also pretty helpful. We have one other group or person that would like to share. Emma.
yesterday?
Thursday maybe?
No, it was Friday.
Was it Friday? Okay. I feel like
Yeah.
it's already Sunday.
So, and, the goal was WSUTC students will feel more supported after visiting the suicide awareness table than they did before, as measured by them saying yes or no to a question of,
Yep.
do you feel more supported?
Yep. And so that one was really just kind of suicide awareness, resources for suicide awareness, and if you come up to the table and receive these resources, like, was this more helpful? Do you feel more prepared now that you've gotten this business card, I think, and t-shirt? So even a simple tabling event that gets your club some exposure, right, can have some really great intention behind it. So those are some really great examples. I know from walking around the room, we talked a little bit about dances. What are some intentions behind dances? We talked a little bit about alumni engagement. There's just a lot of different programs, it sounds like, and activities that people are working on that it doesn't matter what it is, right? It doesn't matter if it's a table or a dance or something just kind of off the wall. All of the things that you should do should have meaning behind it. So I was talking to a group that said, well, we had a requirement that we had to do an event once a month, and we had money. So often what we would do is just like purchase Panda, feed people, and like go, right? And I'm just like, why? What was the point of that? Oh, because we had to plan a monthly event. Or, oh, because we had money and we had to spend it, right? Those are not great reasons, although feeding students is always something that you're probably going to get a lot of attendance for, but those really aren't great reasons to do it, right? So kind of coming up with, okay, how can we also work on our networking or work on elevator pitches as we're enjoying this meal together, or something else, right, that kind of gets to, what's the point of this club? Why are we getting together? Because I'm sure it's just not a Panda Express eating club, right? That would be great. Does anybody want to start it? We need 4 students. Advisor? Tamara's got you. Okay, so really quick, I have a few more points that I want to talk about for future planning of your objectives. The 3 M's, and this is also in your thing, you've probably already read through it, but making sure that your objective is meaningful. So how would the objective support your organization's mission or goals, right? Panda Express eating, right? Does that really support anything? Not if it's not really building community in addition. For what? Charity. For charity, that's true. That could be true, actually. Is your objective manageable? So what is needed to foster the achievement of the objective? Is it realistic? Do you realistically expect for people to walk out of here like with full-on learning objectives for their upcoming program? Well, no, but do I hope that you at least kind of understand that a little bit more? Yeah, so I think that's manageable. And then measurable. How will you know if the objective is achieved? What is the assessment method? I did not prepare for this. Otherwise, I would have taken attendance here, right? I would have asked you all the questions of, did you learn about learning objectives? What is an upcoming event that you have created a learning objective for, and please define it. And that way I can really see, based on, that would be essentially a test, whether you actually learned about learning objectives, okay? I didn't want to do that today, so my learning objective was a little flawed, you could say. Some common challenges that people have with their learning objective: describing program objective rather than a learning objective. Okay, so the mission of your club or org is much broader than the activity that you might be doing for a specific reason. So really just make sure you are intentional about, why am I tabling for psychology club, okay? Using vague verbs. So appreciate, know, learn, value, understand. That's so vague. I can hardly measure whether you actually understood this, right? You might be like, yep, and I'm like, cool, you got it. But can you actually be able to create a learning objective as a result of this? Because that's kind of at the highest form of whether I did my job here or not. So try using some of those more higher levels of learning on Bloom's taxonomy in order to avoid that challenge. Don't make it too complex or too wordy, because then it just kind of can lose meaning or not be as concise. Make sure that you don't have multiple objectives in one statement. And if you have the word "and" in your statement, that's usually an indicator that you probably have more than one. And that's not to say that your event or activity can't have multiple objectives, but just make sure that you're clear about that, okay? And then it not being specific enough. So for example, I want you all to walk out of here with effective communication skills. What does that even mean? I don't even know what that means, right? I could be like, and then if you do that back, I'll be like, yep, we got it. We communicated with each other, okay? So be specific. And then really quick, I want to talk a little bit more about that degree, which I already told you is pretty much the most important piece of really knowing, which I know I neglected to do so here today, but this is important. But really knowing whether or not you accomplished your objective, and it's important. So when you evaluate, it allows you to gain insight into how well you're actually connecting with your audience, okay? So if I would have done that survey, it would have allowed me to know whether this actually worked. Does this work in lecture form? If it didn't work that well, I maybe want to try doing kind of more of an interactive type thing instead of more of a lecture type thing, okay? It helps you determine if you're achieving your organization's goals by saying, yes, we did the thing we set out to do. Also, data is just a bunch of numbers until you use it to close loops, make meaning, and improve your programs and services. I might learn from my data here that you all didn't learn anything. And that would be something that I need to take back and figure out, how can I do this differently so that people actually can learn? And then finally, assessment's not hard, but it is needed, and it needs to be intentional. Because if you're just assessing, like, how happy is everybody right now? That's probably not a measure of whether or not you learned about learning objectives, okay? So really quick, focusing on the assessment cycle, if there's anything that you guys take away from this in addition to learning objectives, it's that you will do this. First thing your club needs to have is a mission and goals, right? Those foundational documents of why your club exists or why you're participating in the Emerging Leaders Program. You then need to come up with the criteria for success. What are your objectives? What are your targets? What do you want to do as an organization this year? Then you provide your program or your service or your event or activity that you created based on this learning objective thing. Then you're going to determine the effectiveness, right, by asking the question like, did this work? Did you like it? And then you're going to use the results for improvement. You can always do better next time, right? And so if your program was awesome, I had 30 plus people here, people really seemed to engage, I saw a lot of great learning outcomes, there's probably more that I could do to make this better next time, like printing enough handouts. Some common assessment and evaluation methods. If you looked on the last page of your little assessment thing that I gave you, learning objective worksheet, whatever it is, there are some really great assessment strategies here. I talked with a group that was doing a learning objective for a dance, and I said, well, you probably don't want to survey people who came to your dance, right? It just doesn't seem to fit. If you're doing something more academic, yeah, maybe you send them a survey. But there might be some additional or different assessment strategies that you can use that will help you figure out whether people actually learned or did or understood the thing that you wanted them to get out of your event. So here are just some different kind of assessment things you could do. Like I could ask you all to write a reflection and send it back to me, and you can tell me whether you learned it or not, so on and so forth. So that's kind of the end of the formal presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Comments? Tamara.
Do you maybe have any examples of ways that you've seen groups like implement this, like raise it to like the next level? Or like what's something that gets you like excited about?
Yeah.
Stuff?
Yeah, so if I can use ASWC Global as an example, they were talking about an event that they have put on annually in the spring, and it maybe just isn't hitting as well as they'd want it to, or maybe they want to change the theme of it, and I might be actually missing some other people's, like mixing them together, but maybe they want to change what it was to what it could be, right? And so I think the idea of just saying, and this is my favorite thing, starting with why. Why are you doing the event? Oh, because we want to have students learn this, understand this, do this. And that's where you start your programming from. It's not like this, we want to have a, I don't know, I keep picking on you, Dylan, but we want to have a big esports tournament. Do you start there, or do you start with, we want to really get competitive with our students that are in the esports club for blah, blah, blah purposes, and you start there, right? And so what I think is cool about this is you can just come up with your objectives and be able to apply that to different programs that you already have in mind, Or you can start from there and think, how can I make it so that people build community or whatever that might be. Or if you're like, this event sucks, and I will be the first one to say, I've put on some programs that nobody came to. And I'm just like, this is so important. Why wouldn't you come to this? And there are things that I have done to make that program better and do things a little bit differently so that students can understand, like, this is why this might be helpful for you. And so it's okay to fail, but I think it's important to know, what could I have done better? And you can't really know that without asking people. So, great question. Anybody else have any questions? I think I'm like perfectly at time. This has never happened to me before. So thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate you.